of revenue, and the difference was made up from budgetary reserve. 2004, again, your millage rate is low, 4.6. Again, you estimated about 2.3 million in revenue, about 2.3 million in expenses. You underspent in 2004, but again, your revenue was pretty consistent with 2003. It wasn't a realistic number. It wasn't a realistic number. And so the result is, look at here. Can you see that? $581,000, $581,296. That was money taken out of the reserve fund in order to balance the budget. Okay, Keith, where are you going with this? Let's go to 2005. 2005, after dipping into the reserve fund about $1 million, then the millage increased from 4.6 to 11. That's going to bring you in more revenue. And so, although I had a problem with this, there's a state requirement that you have a balanced budget. And so from 2005, 6, 7, 8, and 9, the budget was not balanced. Okay? In 10, it was not balanced. Now, fortunately, in 5, 6, and 7, revenue exceeded estimates. And the expenditures were held in check. And so there was not a hit on the budgetary reserve. In 2008, weren't as fortunate. Balance wasn't anticipated to be budget. It looks like the city was anticipating dipping into budgetary reserve $456,000. Fortunately, revenues came in a little higher, but still there was a hit to the reserve account of $124,000. And then again in 2009, your millage rate is still 11. You see the numbers here, dipped into the reserve account, $156,000. Of course, you see in 2010, the millage was bumped up slightly, 11.31. Did not go over budget. And then in 11, bumped up to 14. Now, here's what this tells me. It tells me a couple of things. Everyone knows that since 2008, it really showed up in 2009, that the digests have been declining. And so some of this, in terms of your digest number increasing to bring in the same amount of money, is attributable to the decrease in your digest. However, the other thing it tells me is that the city was operating with a millage rate that was not realistic and that was not supported by the taxes. What it was supported by was the budgetary reserve. Okay? Let me illustrate that. There's something else that will illustrate that. So I asked the question, if the city did not have the benefit of that rainy day fund that started out at $3 million, what would the millage rate need to have been to bring in the proper amount of revenue to support the level of expenditure? Everybody follow me there? Okay? Here's the answer. In 2003, if the city had not dipped into the budgetary reserve, and if the millage rate would have been calculated to support current level of spending, the millage rate in 2003, even with a higher digest, would have been 16.92. In 2004, if the millage rate, if the city had not dipped into the reserve funds, the millage rate to support that level of expenditure would have been 18.01. For 2008, the millage rate would have been 18.67. And in 2009, the millage rate, if the city did not have the ability to dip into reserve funds, should have been 19.36. And so that answers our question. When staff looked at the percentage of increase in the budget, and really the budget hasn't increased much in the last 10 years. From 2003 to 2012, the expenditures have only increased a little less than 24%. That's pretty good considering this is a less than $3 million budget. Okay? Millage rates, however, have increased about 275%. Why is that? That's because the city of Clarkston did two things for a number of years. You funded your expenditures out of your reserves, which allowed the city to keep its millage rate artificially deflated. Now that's a good strategy as long as you have money in the rainy day fund. But if you run out of money in the rainy day fund, you have to pay as you go. We are sort of in the pay as you go position now. And so with that, that's my recommendation. That gives you a little bit of mathematical perspective and history. I wanted to make sure that current administration or current staff, when we're recommending a 17.95 millage, I want people to understand that it's not because there's been this huge increase in expenditure the last couple of years. There has not. It's just that now we're being realistic in terms of the amount of millage that's required to support the level of operation in the city. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions from council?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see, one was, as far as the city here, we stay at the rollback rate, what, 14.85?
14.89?
89. What is the difference between that and what, 17.25? Do you know?
Tracy, you want to answer that? Difference between the rollback rate and the mathematical millage.
So the reason for the 17.95 is in our budget, we currently have $190,000 for capital projects, and that's been included in the calculation to come to the millage rate of 17.25 that Mr. Parker spoke of. The rollback rate is just the millage that you would need to get the same amount of tax money that you did last year. And so they're two independent calculations.
I'm asking you for the difference, but
So the difference is that there's a difference between the 14.89 is the number you would need to set to get the same amount of property tax proceeds as last year. The 17.25 is the number that you need to support